within Europe, there's a number of different themes that investors are thinking about. One is politics. So in 2018, we get the Italian elections. It's a big election. There is the possibility of a non-establishment party, the Five-Star Party, coming into power. So that's a big risk for investors in Europe and for the economic picture. Then there's a question of what will the Franco-German alliance look like over the course of 2018. Of course, we have Macron's victory. The CDU in the German elections didn't do as well as many people thought. So Merkel isn't as strong as she once was. And so the question is, how does the Franco-German alliance influence the path of reform within Europe? Then there's a question of the ECB. Will they taper or not? Will they increase interest rates? And so that's the big focus within Europe.
Inflation in the Eurozone is super low. It's well below the European Central Bank's target. And that means that the ECB can go very slowly in removing some of the excess accommodation that it's put in place over the last several years. The Bank of England is in a slightly different situation. Inflation is much higher than in the Eurozone. It's actually uncomfortably high relative to the Bank of England's target, admittedly in part because of a weak value for the pound. But that aside, the Bank of England probably has to do a little bit more work in order to bring inflation levels in the UK economy back to target.
One of the major things that we could see next year is the UK going on a more soft attack when it comes to Brexit. Either a long transitional period gets agreed, or the EU does seem to give us signs of a very comprehensive free trade agreement that covers services and indeed banking. If financial services are covered, a lot of the question marks around Brexit would start to fade away. That would have a big impact on the pound and also the UK's massive external deficit in terms of our goods and trade. The EU is one of the few places that is a buyer of our services to a large extent. If you remove that with a hard Brexit, we have a balance of payments problem in the UK, and that has a huge detrimental impact on the pound.
The market is not focused on Brexit. It's almost too far away now for the market to react to it. So I think Brexit, until there's more clarity on how long the transition period will be or what Brexit actually will entail, I think the market will have to muddle on.
So there was a lot of uncertainty about the Eurozone this year in the context of a Dutch election, a French election, a German election, issues in Spain, as well as the possibility of an Italian election this year. As it's panned out, though, and partly I think because the region has recovered very nicely and is seeing some very robust economic growth and falling unemployment, the sort of populist sentiment that a lot of people expected to emerge in the Netherlands and in France and in other economies hasn't really happened. And that, in turn, of course, has been very good news for the Eurozone economy.